my 6th series of Quarantine or Paradise. Those series I created now almost a few months ago for those of us who are fortunate enough to be well, but find it a bit difficult to be confined at home. And so I invited incredible people to share their experiences and also provide some tips on how to cope in these situations. And for those who don't know who I am, by the way, I am a composer and a pianist, and my name is GéNIA, but I'm very privileged to be able to invite such incredible people and ask them about their experiences and ask them these questions. So today, I'm very fortunate and honored to have one of the leading authors, physicians, and researchers in the field of Chinese medicine, Dr. Volker Scheid. Welcome, Volker.
Welcome, GéNIA. Thanks very much for inviting me onto your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for finding time to join us. Now, I have to admit that the very first time I heard about you, it was from a mutual, it was actually from a patient of yours who said, I have to go now because I have to see this doctor. And it's absolutely impossible to get an appointment with him. You have to wait for months and months. But he is a miracle worker. He does things which NHS cannot do. And so he mentioned your name. That was the first time I heard your name. And then there were a couple of occasions where someone asked me for recommendation. And of course, after that, I always mentioned your name. So some of my friends and colleagues went to see you. And originally, I don't know why, because it was mentioned you specialize in Chinese medicine. So in my mind, very stupidly, I have to admit, I assumed that you were Chinese. Now, you were born in Germany. So what made you go, and how does it become, Chinese medicine? How did it become your life work?
So I grew up in a family that was involved in cultivating herbs for herbal medicine. Mm-hmm. My father was a gardener. And so he comes from a family of gardeners, actually, but he was cultivating Western medical herbs, like peppermint and chamomile and herbs like that, for quite a famous herbalist in Germany. Mm-hmm. And my mother was the manager. So this herbalist was quite famous, and he had quite a big operation. So he was, he had patients. This was like the 60s. So he had patients at the time from all over the world coming to him. Yeah. Okay. And he grew part of the herbs he grew himself, and my father did that. So basically I grew up with herbal medicine. Yes. Like in my school holidays, I would go, I actually would work there. Yes. Okay. So, I grew up with, taking herbs, in our family when we got ill, got tonsillitis or a cold, we would never go to a doctor. We would always take herbs. So it was kind of like natural, yes. And this famous herbalist also was he was a bit distant figure because he was also the boss of my father. But at the same time, he was quite charismatic. Yes. Okay. So he was. So I always had the fascination with herbs, and it was always something that medicine also attracted me. Yeah. Okay. Helping people. So that's one influence. And then when I grew up, it was, maybe for you growing up in Russia and a bit younger than me, it's different. But, like the 1960s, 70s was kind of like I grew up in what is called the counterculture. Yes. Okay. So one of the things we were looking for alternatives. Yes. Okay. So we want to be different, create a different society, more egalitarian and different. Yes. So, so being part of that counterculture, I decided I didn't want to go down the route of, Western medicine at that time, maybe stupidly, but it was associated for me with the society that the old society that we wanted to get rid of. So we looked for new medicine, yes, and also China and the East, India, you know, they were places where people of my generation traveled to and which they imagined had a kind of alternative to what we were doing. So if you put those two things together, that made me want to become a herbalist, yes. And then but when so basically initially I wanted to just work with herbal medicine, yes, and I looked around for places where I could study, and for various reasons I came to the UK to study herbal medicine. But the course that I could study was only a part-time course. So I looked for something else to do. And often in in the other part of my time, you know, being a good German, I couldn't just study something for part of the week. I need to be working full week. Yeah. So in my life, I've had a lot of experience, which in Chinese you call yuanfen, which means it's kind of like almost destiny. Things happen to you. Yes. And because of certain things that happened to me, I came into contact with acupuncture. So I thought, okay, I'm already here studying Chinese herbal medicine, so why not use the rest of my time to study acupuncture? So then I studied acupuncture, and that opened up the whole world of Chinese medicine to me. Then I discovered that actually in China you don't just have acupuncture, you also have herbal medicine. So then I studied Chinese herbal medicine, and that are the beginnings of how I came to do what I'm doing.
I see. So actually that was one of my questions. So is acupuncture part of Chinese herbal medication, or is it two different things, or are they connected?
Well, it's both part and different, yes. So, I mean, Chinese medicine has is very old medicine, so it's almost over 2,000 years old. Yeah. Okay. So, and being over 2,000 years old, the best way you can imagine it, it's a little bit like the church. Yes, like the church is 2,000 years old. Yes. So there are certain things that all people who are Christians believe in, you know, like a God and maybe, yeah, but they also dispute a lot of other things, yes. So same in Chinese medicine. There are certain things that all of Chinese medicine agrees upon, and then there are things that are different, yes. So one of the things that might be different is the tools that you use, yes. Okay, so acupuncture uses needles and maybe massaging, yes, okay. And herbs, of course, use not just plants, also minerals, and so it's more like a pharmacological approach, yes. So they have certain things in common, like how they think about the body, but then there's also differences. Like say, if you do acupuncture, you have a very different relationship with the body because you touch it all the time, yes, okay. Whereas when I went to China, for instance, to study, a lot of the herbalists, they grow their little finger very long. So like men, yes, would grow their little finger very long. So this was a sign that they didn't do manual labor, yes.
Oh.
Whereas if you're an acupuncturist, you were considered like you work with your hands. So for many herbalists, they would never touch acupuncture at that point, yes, because it's considered manual. But if you go back in the history of Chinese medicine, for many periods of time, acupuncture was superior to herbal medicine. So it's both the same and it's also different, yes?
Wow, very interesting. But sometimes, like in the modern days, if you treat a patient, do you apply both at the same time? Like you would choose to do acupuncture as well as prescribe herbal medicine, or is it one or another?
I mean, those are two of the tools that I use, yes? So, I mean, so I trained as an acupuncturist, I also trained as a herbalist. So these are two tools I have,
I
yes?
see.
Okay. So, I mean, depends. You can use them together. Sometimes you can use, sometimes one is better than the other. Sometimes it's, so I would always, in my own view of things, I like to be more like a minimalist. The less is better. So if it's just one, then it's one, but very often you use the two together. It really depends on the person. It depends also on personal preferences. Yes, like some people don't like to have needles. Some people don't like to take the herbs because they may not taste nice. Some people don't want to take herbs because they're already taking Western medication. So the more tools you have, the more flexible you can be. Does it make sense? Yes.
I
Okay.
see. Yes, yes, yes. So it's a very creative work, actually.
It
I'm
is.
thinking
Yeah.
as a creative, being creative
Uh,
myself, but you have.
it is very. I mean, like in the history of Chinese medicine,
Mhm.
um, a lot of Chinese medical doctors were artists. Yes, so they would be painters or poets or opera singers. Yes. Okay.
Really?
Because
I didn't know.
yeah, because it's very similar. Yes, it's very creative. You um, because you work in one of the ideas in Chinese medicine, which is a bit different than Western medicine. You try to look at each person as a very individual thing. So how you have to work with each person is very different. Yes, you don't just look, oh, this is a blood test, so they get that. Yes, so one person might need more talking, another person might need no talking. Yes,
Yes.
one person needs a lot of care all the time, other people only need a little bit. Yes, and sometimes you need to use uh, so just to give you a story,
Mhm.
so my wife, one of the things that happens to you if you do the job that I do, my wife does the same. Yes,
I see.
so when we travel, uh, people always some very quickly find out what you do, and then you always end up treating them somewhere. Yes, so like so one we were in Australia, and we did a tour in the bush, and the person who took us out, he was the guide. He was a real a real um, outback outdoors person, and he had some shoulder pain. So we told him that we would do acupuncture. So he needed, he wanted the thickest needles, lots of needles. It had to hurt a lot. Yes, okay. If it didn't hurt, it didn't work. Yes, but then you might treat somebody, over here, and if you hurt them even a little bit, they don't want that. Yes, so everybody needs to be treated in a different way. So
Well, makes sense. It's like
yeah,
when you teach piano, it's the
yeah,
same. I never teach the same in the same way. Every student is different. You find a
exactly.
way how they absorb the information, what actually they remember, how they remember, and how they move their body. So yeah, I
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
totally understand. But now looking at traditional medicine and Chinese medicine, I mean, it's a very generic question, but still, would you be able to comment on pros and cons if you kind of compared, or do you think that traditional medicine are all cons?
You mean like Western medicine and
Yes,
Chinese
yes,
medicine?
yeah, Western, sorry, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, no, I think it's a bit like music. Yes. I mean, there's different kinds of music for different kind of situations and audiences. Yes.
Mhm.
So, um, I first of all, I think like I Western medicine has a lot of advantages, yes, because of it's very technologically focused, and has certain ways of how it can have access to the human body that
Mhm.
Chinese medicine has not. Yes, so Chinese medicine, for reasons that I could explain to you if we had lots of time, it never went down a kind of like technological route. Yes, okay. So it's not because Chinese are more stupid, so they could have not invented that kind, but they were not for certain reasons they were not interested in that. Yes, okay. But
Mhm.
Western medicine has a kind of put it very simplistically, it treats the body like a machine, and in a machine you can exchange parts. So once you have this idea that the body is a machine, then taking out a heart and putting in a new heart becomes like a possibility of what you can do. And once you have the idea of a possibility, then you go down that route. Yes. But one of the disadvantages is, of course, that in Western medicine, a lot of people feel treated like a machine. Yes, they don't feel treated like a human being, but they feel treated like a thing. So you go down to the doctor, he's not really interested in you as a person, he's just interested in your blood count. Yes. Okay. Um, so very simplistically, Chinese medicine has always had a much more interest in the individual person. Yes. Okay. As a potential, and working with the potential of the human being. So for that reason, its focus has always been on trying to enhancing that potential. So whether that is a potential, and so in terms of illness, so it's how can I help that person to be as healthy as possible. So that might be when you have an infection, you obviously help the person to fight the infection, but it also might be like giving them lifestyle advice or helping their nutrition. Or does that make sense? So the whole focus is not on treating it like it's treating as a person with potential.
I
So
see.
that is a big difference in perspective, and everything follows from those different perspectives. Yes. Okay. But in my own practice, if you came to me and I think there's something that Western medicine might be better at handling, yes, okay, then I would certainly send you to a doctor. Yeah. Okay. And very often I do that. Yeah. Okay. uh, Ideally, I would like to, my ideal scenario is to work together with different practitioners, like maybe biomedical doctors, osteopaths. Yeah. Okay. Chinese medicine practitioners, because everybody has a different it's like an orchestra,
I
as
yes,
an individual. If you play an individual instrument, it's
yes,
nice, but if you're orchestra, you can do different things, isn't it?
yes.
Yes. Okay. So I think, in my opinion, that's how medicine should be practiced, particularly in the UK. In the last 20 years, this has become more or less impossible, because for certain cultural reasons in the UK, um, Western medicine, Western medical doctors are, on the whole, absolutely not interested in any kind of cooperation. Yes, which is very different. Say in Germany, I teach a lot in Germany, and half of my students are biomedical doctors.
I see.
So both the students, like if I would move to Germany, I could work tomorrow together with biomedical doctors. That wouldn't be a problem. Yeah, but in England, it's just is more or less out of the question. Yeah, but that's it's not for. Or in China, if you go to China, uh, Chinese medicine is routinely practiced in hospitals. Yes, okay. So it's totally, there's not so big boundaries between Chinese medicine and Western medicine. Yeah, okay. In in this, a big difference where you can see that is in in this COVID pandemic. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
In China, they used from the very beginning Chinese medicine together with Western medicine. Yes, if you here would even mention Chinese medicine, they don't report it on the news. You wouldn't even see that, and if it comes out, it's all just like hocus pocus. Don't take that seriously, because we know best. Yeah, okay. So the
Yes,
boundaries are not from my end; they
I
are from the biomedical side. Yes.
I understand. I mean, I personally don't like going to doctors. I do it very rare. I don't like taking medication unless I really, really, really have to. Um, and yes, I always think that it's better to be healthy. In the Russian culture, it's slightly different where I was born. It was
Yeah.
also more organic, I think the approach was. Maybe not to such extent as you're talking, but still they were looking at the whole body. But then it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. Now
If you look in, say, if you would do a kind of like, I mean, the best way to keep healthy is through diet and exercise. And I think the next thing would be maybe acupuncture or plants. Yes. Okay.
okay.
And if that fails, then you go to Western medicine. Yes. So it should be that way around. Yes. In practice nowadays, it's usually the other way around. Most people go to Western medicine, and if Western medicine doesn't help, then they come to us. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
But if they would come to us first, we could probably help them much easier. So, but anyway, that's how it is. Yeah.
Fascinating. No, thank you. Now, you are author of numerous books because I was looking at you on Amazon and your name appears in different publications. 2 books you wrote, 4 books, and 2 books you were editor, and then I think you contributed many chapters to many publications. And if we talk about all the books, we'll probably be here until next week. But I know just right now, something new just came out. I think it's in April this year. You wrote numerous chapters for Miracle Foods, the book called Miracle Foods.
Moral food.
Ah, moral. Sorry, I see. That's how I see it. I think it's a miracle. Okay, so please tell us about it.
Well, I'm a bit unusual in that I'm not just a Chinese medicine doctor. I'm also a historian.
Mm-hmm.
So and an anthropologist. So for me, when I started to study Chinese medicine and become very interested in it, I started to realize that taking a medicine from a different place and from a different time and from a different culture and taking that across to a different culture like over here, that's not unproblematic. Yes, it requires sensitivity in terms of the translation that you're doing. Translation, I don't just mean the translation of the words. I mean the translation of the entire practice, because maybe what is appropriate to do in China is not appropriate to do over here. People over here have different expectations, but also culture changes all the time. Human beings change all the time. Yes. So, and I also wanted to know more about the history of Chinese medicine itself. So I became a historian. Yes. So I also so I'm actually established. I'm an academic historian. Yes. Okay.
You're an
So
that's your artistic side, which you
yeah, it's my scientific, artistic. Yeah.
scientific artistic. Yeah.
So, and so most of my publications are academic publications. So I was I was the first professor of East Asian medicine in the West at University of Westminster, and so I'm particular. My expertise is very much about sort of kind of like the history of Chinese medicine over the last 2,000 years, perhaps, and also about the translation of Chinese medicine over here. Yes, how this might be done. And what you do as a historian, you're really interested not so much in Chinese medicine, does it work or doesn't it work? Yes, okay, but rather, why did doctors come up with certain ideas in a certain particular context? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this book, Moral Foods, why is it called Moral Foods? Is because when we think about food, food is something to eat, yes? But when we think about food, like nowadays, if you just look in the internet anywhere, it's always about good foods and bad foods, yes? So foods are not just foods, they always have some moral connotation about should you eat that, shouldn't you eat that, how much should you eat it, who should eat it, etc., etc. How should you prepare it? So this book, Moral Food, is really an examination about food. How did certain foods, what are the moralities associated with certain foods in Asian culture in the last 100 years? Yes. So for instance, if you go back maybe like 100, 200 years, tea in China was not considered. Tea in China was considered a little, even so people would drink it, but it was considered a bit amoral. If you drank too much, it wasn't good for you. And now it's, green tea is a health food par excellence. Yes, it kills COVID-19. Yes, and it's fantastic. It makes you live 200 years. Yes, okay. So how did this change come about from something not so good to something positive? Yes, okay. Or for instance, in China, drinking milk nowadays is considered, everybody must drink milk. Yes, okay. Even so, 95% of Chinese are allergic to, they lactose intolerant.
Yes. Hmm.
So how come that a population of lactose intolerant people suddenly thinks, who have historically never drunk milk, yes, okay, suddenly think milk is, the, like we think maybe goji berries are the best thing to eat. Yes, they
Hmm.
think milk is so this book is about exploring these kind of transformations. Yeah, okay. um
Incredible. And it's available on
it's a
Amazon.
but it's an academic book, yes. So I think, I mean, it's got many interesting stories, yes. So how did it how did how did soya milk come about? Yes, okay, it's a very interesting interesting idea. Yeah, okay. Or like what I write about is how how plants were integrated, herbs,
Mm-hmm.
and how herbs were integrated into Chinese diet, and how foods were integrated into medicine. Yes, uh, both in the late 19th century
Mm-hmm.
and nowadays, and how that has changed. Yes, okay. So how nowadays, if you look uh, in Chinese medical text, they will basically talk about food like medicine. Yes, so like this food has this action, this food has that action. But again, if you go back like 150 years or so, there were no really foods that were always good. Yes, it was also, foods are like human beings, they have a potential. Yes, okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it is very much more about working with the potential of a person. Yes, okay, like working with that potential of the food to do good for you. Yes, and knowing how you can do that. Yes, okay, when to avoid it, when to have it. Yes, so that's a very big change of perspective. Whereas in modern Chinese medicine, you have good foods and bad foods. Yes, okay.
Yes.
Whereas in 200 years ago, you had a potential of foods to help you and be good for you, and you have to cultivate that through your knowledge and through your cooking and things like that. Yeah.
Well, I'm always very interested and I'm always experimenting. I don't know. In fact, we are coming to a second part of our interview series, and usually, because all my previous guests were coming from creative disciplines, we always introduce 3 tips each for creativity and discuss. But of course, here I am not going to say anything. I'm not going to give any tips. In fact, I thought, why don't we change it? I give you 3 things which I'm doing, and you'll tell me whether it's a good thing or not. And obviously, our viewers want to know afterwards any tips or advice, of course, you can give on top of that. Now, the first thing, when this disaster happened, I got paranoid about eating fresh food because I thought, just in the practical ways, because we don't know if this virus can be on anything in theory, and we have to, if it can be on the hands, and we have to wash it with soap. In theory, why can't the virus be on the salad or tomatoes? And but I didn't feel like washing salad with a soap. So for about 4 or 5 weeks, I didn't have anything fresh, no vegetables, no fruits, and then I got really sad. And then I start talking to my friends, and they're apparently all eating salads and fruits. So, what is the right thing to do here?
Okay. So again, in Chinese medicine, you would look at it on a person-to-person basis. Yeah. So
Mhm.
for some people it's better, and for some people it's worse.
Okay.
But actually, whether you know it or not, probably you did yourself more good than bad. Yes.
Hmm.
Because in Chinese medicine, when you fight something or your defenses, yes, okay, in Chinese medicine we talk about qi.
Mm-hmm.
You know the
Yes.
term qi, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of like, often it's translated as energy, yeah?
Yes.
But it's basically, again, I say it's a potential. Qi, one of the functions of qi, it's the potential you have to resist and fight disease, yes? Okay?
Yes.
And in Chinese medicine, this potential to resist and fight disease is associated with warmth.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when you get ill, you get a fever. Yes, your body becomes even more active as it fights. Yes, okay. So if you eat a lot of cold food in Chinese medicine is fresh, uncooked food, amongst other things, yes?
Mhm.
So you're actually reducing that potential to fight disease, yes? Okay? So in a certain way, having warm food, yes, okay? Actually, cooked food actually
Mm.
makes it easier for your body to digest because already pre-cooked, yes, okay? So though you don't need to use so much of your own heat
I
to
see.
digest the food. So you have more of your own heat available to fight the disease. Yes. So in this particular instance, it's actually probably certainly not bad. Yeah. Probably
Okay.
quite good.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, I got something right. Okay, another thing, but that's I can't even go into many details. But when I go, these days you go to Whole Foods store or any health store, you have shelves and shelves full of vitamins and herbs, and you feel like you want, when this news happened, you wanted to buy anything you can. So people were going crazy, going to Whole Foods shop, buying these up to 20, 25 bottles of everything. So I didn't buy 20, 25, but I think I maybe take 7, 8 of different things, and I don't know if it's a lot or not. And one of them is basically something, it's kind of some combination, and don't ask me please about the details, but for immune, strengthening the immune system. So I thought that was very important during this time.
So I mean, it depends. If you're just taking like say vitamin C or zinc or some vitamin D, that's fine. Yes.
Okay.
Once you start taking like say if you would buy like a Chinese medicine formula for boosting the immune system,
Hmm.
then you might be doing yourself more harm than good. Yes.
Hmm.
So like give you an example. Yes. Like so when HIV/AIDS came about, yes, it's
Hmm.
called immunodeficiency, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Yes. So because it was a new disease, doctors, people in San Francisco started to use herbs to boost the immune system. Yes, okay, because I think it's an immunodeficiency, so we have to boost the immune system. But from a Chinese medicine perspective, these are actually probably the worst herbs you can take because you don't want to. If you boost the immune system, you also boost the virus. Yes, the action of the virus. Yeah, I can't explain to you in detail, but you want to do something quite different. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
So simply that's what I mean. Simply translating, like a term from immunodeficiency and then use immunoboosting herbs. No, that in
I see.
in that case you need to talk to a person who knows what they're doing. Yes, okay,
Yes.
and listen to their advice. Yes, okay.
Okay. But things like vitamin D, I'm taking vitamin D.
Vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc,
Hmm.
they are fine. I take them as well.
Okay, good. Thank you, thank you. And then another thing that when it's happened, because I usually like well, today is a very hot day in London, but it's rather unusual. And of course, the whole disaster happened in the middle of March. So my apartment is usually quite warm, quite hot, which is also not very good for my pianos, I must admit. But I like to be in warmth. And yet, when I was reading the news, I thought that it's important to have fresh air constantly in the house, obviously not without getting cold, but having the circulation. Would you say it's the right thing to do?
Yeah, definitely. You need, like stale air is not so much oxygen for you to breathe. Yes, okay.
Mm.
So definitely, opening your, having open windows so you get. I mean, one of the good things was that there was not so much traffic, so actually London air was good. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So having windows open to get good, you get oxygen is very good. Yes, but at the same time, the virus likes cold. Yes, okay. So having a warm house is also important. Yes, so
Ah, okay.
I think. The good thing about Chinese medicine, it's never about either or. It's about a balance, yes. So you open the windows and you have a warm house, and sometimes you open it and then it gets warm again. Yes, okay.
I see. Okay, no, thank you, thank you. Because I know some people say, "Oh, let's just keep. We are not going to use the heating, but we are going to keep our doors, windows closed." And I thought that's not a
Well,
very good idea, possibly.
the really good thing about Chinese medicine, you're always pragmatic, yes, and you
Mhm.
always the balance. You're not going. It's not about this or that. It's about finding a pragmatic solution. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. I still have a long way to work on my balance, but can you suggest some tips from our viewers during this difficult time? Obviously, in the view of the current situation.
Well, I mean, the first thing I already said to you is kind of like really make sure it's probably better to avoid too much cold food. Yes. Okay. Like eat a lot of shift towards warming foods. Yes. Easily digestible warming food. Yes. So kind of like, for breakfast, things like porridge. Yes. Okay. Or, very very good is Chinese rice gruels. Yes. Okay. Because if you look recipes, I can send you one. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
For rice gruels, you can do loads of nice things with that. And
Mm,
not too much meat, a little bit, but not too much, because it's too difficult to digest. And so I would say 80% plant-based. Yes, if you can. But warm more than avoid too much cold. Also, yeah. Drink enough. Yeah. Okay. So that's in terms of, and just try to have a varied diet. Yes. Okay. Lots of, not always the same. Also cook, and then the other thing, of course, is you need to try and be happy in some way. Yes. Okay. No, I mean, you want to have a positive outlook. Yes.
I
Okay.
see. I agree.
So you want to concentrate on, it's a different time, so allow yourself to be different. Yes, don't think you have to continue in the same way. If you want to, because it's time of difference. So if you want to sleep differently, you always wanted to stay up at night and sleep in the daytime, or do you know what I mean? Or it's a time also for you to experiment and be different, if you can do
I
that.
love that.
So
Yes.
I think that's something. Yes. So think, rather than think, oh, what can I not do? Take it as an opportunity to experiment and turn it around on its head. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So that makes you then more happy, because if you continuously think, oh, I would like to do this, but I cannot do this, and I would like to do this, and I cannot do that, then you become very frustrated and depressed. But if you think, oh, actually, no, I can actually do this, which I never have done before. Or let's just see how that works. Do you know what I mean? Yes.
Mm,
Maybe that then you turn it. And so that's the other thing. And then the third thing, I think, is try and stay in touch with people that are important to you. Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
No, that's of course.
Yeah.
That goes without saying. But I love that. I love that. I actually started waking up quite early, and
Uh-huh.
I love creating, composing, or writing, because I write all my blogs or things. So I like doing it sometimes, even as early as 4:30 in the morning or
Yeah.
5.
That's fine.
And I love that. The birds are quite loud, actually. They
Yeah.
wake me up because now there's so many of them. And it's beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I know that you have a clinic in central London. And of course, right now, I'm assuming it's not
Yeah.
working.
No, we had to close almost 2 months ago now. Yes, because obviously we are. I mean, we are contact. Yes,
Yes, of course.
and we are not considered essential medical services. Yes.
Hmm.
Even so, I think we could make give quite a lot of support um, but directly for the COVID, yes, but also for everything that is around it. People with anxiety or um,
Depressions.
yeah, things like that. Yes. But we do I do what is called telemedicine these days. Yes.
Uh-huh.
So you do like we're doing here. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So you have to change a bit
Hmm.
again there. Yeah. So like I become quite a much better expert at tongue diagnosis, because you're looking at the tongue.
Hmm.
Because normally in my clinic I would use a lot feeling the pulse and feeling the abdomen and a lot of touch based diagnosis, but you can't do that. So you need to rely more on inspection. Yes. So you have to be flexible. Yes. Okay. But certainly we still do telemedicine. Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, I hope that, within a few months we will tour.
Yeah,
What do you think?
hopefully, maybe July, early July, hopefully.
Early
If
July.
nothing else, if there's no second wave, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but fingers crossed. And of course, we will give all the details to your clinic. It's called Clinic at South Bank.
That's correct.
Clinic
Yeah.
South Bank. But we will give all the details and links underneath this video. I want to thank you so much. I already feel better. I feel like I'm full of positive energy.
Thank you, GéNIA.
I've learned so much. And yes, I wish you to keep staying so smiley and be so inspirational. And also many thanks to our viewers who joined us today. I hope that, I'm sure you've learned a lot. I certainly have. And thank you very much for joining me. And please look out for our series and episodes. Thank you so much, Volker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, GéNIA. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.